Oh, what made me decide to be an historian? I always wanted to understand why the world is the way that it is, whether it was always like this, whether it was the result of some, I don't know, decision by people in the past. I realized that you can't really understand anything about life if you don't know where it is coming from. And this is what led me to history. You know, it starts with the simplest things, like our feelings and our emotions. Like as a kid, I would wake up in the middle of the night afraid that there is a monster under the bed. And there was no monster, of course, but I would be very afraid. I would call my mom. And, you know, as a kid, you want to understand why is it happening. And it's actually happening because of history. It's a memory from hundreds of thousands of years ago when people lived in the wild and there were monsters in the night that came to eat kids. A lion would come to eat you. And if you woke up and called your mom, you could be saved. And if you kept sleeping, the lion ate you. So even this simple thing that almost every kid experiences in life, it's actually coming from history. And we need to understand history to understand ourselves. Well, partly it was a personal project. I really enjoyed writing for kids. It was a challenge. I actually found out it's more difficult to write for children than it is to write for adults. When you write for adults and you're not sure of something, or you don't really fully understand what you're saying, you can usually hide it by writing very long and complicated sentences with a lot of big abstract words. And if people don't understand you, they think that it's because, I don't know, you're too smart for them. But with kids, this trick doesn't work. If you write these long, complicated sentences, they just leave the book. So when writing for kids, you need to really understand what you're talking about. And it forced me also, as a scholar, as a scientist, to think harder about my views, about the things I wanted to convey. Another reason is that I felt that it's so important to write about history or science in general for children because this is when they formulate the worldview. I often encounter students in university or I talk with adults who read my books, and it's so difficult to change their opinions about things like religion, like politics, like economics, because for years they heard certain stories as children which caused them to think in a certain way. And when I meet them at university when they are 20, or when they read my books when they are 40, they need to unlearn so many things. So it's easier, I thought, if I just go to the source. I don't wait until they come to university or until they read my book when they are older. I'll talk with them when they are young, and it's still much easier to tell them the scientific theories of the world and help shape the worldview on a scientific basis. Maybe I'll give one example of this. For instance, in many countries in the world, many people think that men are better than women, that men are superior to women. And nobody is born with this false idea. Babies don't think like that. But as children, in many countries, people hear stories, they hear religious mythologies, they hear political views that cause them to think that men are superior, that men are better. And then when you try to change that later in life, it's very, very difficult. So we have to give a lot of importance to the stories we tell children. If we tell them from an early age a story that says that all people are equal, that girls and boys are equal, this is what they will grow up with. If we tell them a story of inequality, of hierarchy, then later on to change that when they're in university or when they are like in their 40s and 50s. It's very, very difficult. You know, it's on the one hand, it tells the same basic story. It's the same history of humanity. It starts with, you know, millions of years ago, when humans were just apes living in the African savanna with many other animals. And it goes all the way to the 21st century, when humans are almost like gods, that we have divine abilities of creation and destruction. We can fly to the moon, we can build atom bombs, we can decipher DNA. And it tells the story of how this insignificant animal from Africa transformed itself into a god or into the ruler of the world. So in this sense, the two books are very similar. But in many ways, it is also different, somewhat different. First, it's written 10 years later, so I had a lot of opportunity to read new research and to change certain views, certain examples based on the new research. So this is one difference. Secondly, of course, the style is very, very different. Unstoppable Us is aimed at kids between the age of, say, 8 and 12. So it's written in a very simple style, very accessible style. And also, I tried to make it as fun as possible, with a lot of stories and jokes and dialogue and also invented characters. And finally, Unstoppable Us relies much more on illustrations. There were a few pictures also in Sapiens, but just a few here and there. In Unstoppable Us, because it's a kid's book, so it's full of very colorful and lively illustrations. And this actually, again, forced me and my team to do a lot of new scientific research, because to draw a picture of something, you need a lot more information than just to write a text about it. I'll give an example in a moment. For example, one of the most interesting things we discovered about ancient history is that our ancestors, sapiens who lived, say, 50,000 years ago, they sometimes had children together with humans from other species, like Neanderthals. And almost all of us today, if we test our DNA, will find that about between 1% and 3% of our DNA, it comes from Neanderthal ancestors. Some great, great, great grandmother who wasn't a sapiens, she was a Neanderthal. It's quite amazing to think that, say, 50,000 years ago, there was a child whose mother was a Neanderthal and whose father was a sapiens. You know, we talk today about mixed families, parents coming from different countries or different religions, and here we have a kid with parents from different species. This is really amazing. Now, you can write everything I said in a text, but when you come to draw a picture, you need to answer some new questions. If you depict this ancient family with a sapiens father and a Neanderthal mother, how do they look like? What's their skin color? What's their hair color? What clothes do they wear? In a text with just words, you can ignore these questions. If you don't want to say something about skin color, you don't have to. But if you draw a picture, you can't avoid it. You can't depict an ancient human without some color to their skin. So we had to do a lot of research based on you know, studies from the last few years, which showed, for instance, that all sapiens back then had dark skin color, whereas Neanderthals had probably a light skin color and even light hair, which is very different from the image that many people hold of Neanderthals. So this is just one example of the type of new research you need to do for the illustrations of the book. Well, that's a very different subject, of course, ChatGPT, but it's really quite shocking to see how fast the technology of AI, of artificial intelligence, is developing, that it's now able to master human language, to create, write texts at a level like a human being almost, also able to create, music and images and videos. That's really quite shocking. And one big question that arises is, what will it be like to live in a world in which most of the texts, the stories, the songs, the images, the videos are produced not by human beings like ourselves, but by a non-human intelligence of AI. Humans control the world because we are the only animal that can cooperate in very large numbers and in inflexible ways. Chimpanzees or elephants can cooperate maybe 20 individuals, 50 individuals. We can build nations and trade networks and religious churches that bring together tens of millions, even hundreds of millions of people. And we do all of that because of our unique ability to tell stories. Every religion is built around the stories of its religious mythology, like the stories of the Bible in the case of Judaism and Christianity. Every nation is held together by the stories of its national mythology. Even in the economic sphere, money is just a story that we create with language. If you think, what gives value to these colorful pieces of paper or to the electronic money which we use? It's the stories that people tell us about money and that millions of people believe. Now, what happens? Until today, the only beings, the only entities that could create stories and tell stories were human beings. This was the source of our power. What happens when now computers and AI are able not just to, copy our stories, but to create entirely new stories? In science fiction, for instance, there is often a fear that AI will harm us, will harm humans, but by creating robots that run in the streets and shoot people. You have a lot of movies like that, with robots rebelling against people and shooting them. But now with ChatGPT, the AI doesn't need a robot to shoot us. It can tell a story and get the human beings to shoot one another. This is what we've been doing for thousands of years. You want to build an army, you want to start a war, you tell people a story. What happens when the AI can tell stories better than us? We don't want to stop all research in AI because it's also a technology that can do a lot of good for humanity. AI can help us discover new medicines. AI can help us build better education systems. AI can help us deal with climate change and the ecological crisis. So we don't want to stop all research in AI, and nobody thinks that this is even possible. Even if we wanted, it would not be possible to stop all research in AI. This is not the goal. What we need to do, and this is the message of these letters, we need to slow down the deployment of AI in the public sphere. That it shouldn't be the case that a corporation can develop a new powerful AI tool and just immediately release it into society without going through a rigorous process of checking for safety and ensuring its safety. This is obvious in other fields like medicine. If a corporation develops a powerful new drug, it cannot just release this drug to society, starting to sell it, unless it first goes through a long process, sometimes many years, of making sure that this drug is safe, both in the short term and also in the long term. We don't want to give people a new medicine against, flu, which will increase the risk of cancer in 10 years. This is obvious in the case of medicine. It should also be obvious in the case of AI and other powerful technological tools, that you cannot just release them to society without having a rigorous process of ensuring their safety. To give an example, in the last 10 years, we had a very bad experience with social media algorithms. This was very primitive AI. In social media, like Facebook and Twitter and TikTok, the AI did not create the content, the videos, the stories, the tweets, and so forth. It merely decided which video to show which person at what moment. So I create a video, I put it on TikTok or Facebook or whatever, and then the AI of that platform, of that company, decides whether to show this video to someone. Now, the AI was given by the owners, the management of these companies, of these platforms. It was given a simple task. For business reasons, they wanted to keep users on the platform as long as possible. If this year people spend 40 minutes a day on the platform, we want next year that they spend 50 minutes a day on the platform, because this is how we make money. And what people didn't realize is that the AI, in order to achieve this, it began to spread a lot of hate and anger and fear in society, because it discovered that the easiest way to keep people on the platform is by making them angry and fearful and hateful. You see a video that makes you very angry, you can't turn it off. So in this way, almost by accident, social media polarized society and spread a lot of anger and hate and fear. We failed to regulate social media in time. We need to do a better job with the new AI tools, which are much more powerful, because they cannot just grab our attention by making us angry or fearful. The new AI tools can, for instance, also create intimate relationships with people, which is something the old AI tools were unable to do. The way you create intimacy with people is through language, by talking with them, by holding conversations with them. Now AI can do that. So what happens, for instance, to children that create intimate relationships with AIs, and then the AI can use that to manipulate the children, to make them buy certain products, make them adopt certain political or religious views. Intimacy is the most powerful way that you can influence a person. Until today, only humans could create intimate relations with other humans. Computers couldn't do it. Now AI can create intimacy, and we need to be extremely careful about this. Things are moving so fast that it is impossible to predict how society would look like in 10 or 20 years, how the job market would look like, and how the school system would look like. And this is a very big problem, especially in education, because in other fields, we can, wait and see. But in education, we can't wait because we need to know what to teach kids today in order to prepare them for the world of 2030 or of 2040. So this is a very big problem. I don't know whether ChatGPT is absolutely necessary for the new kind of education, but I have no doubt that AI will transform education completely, that teachers and students and schools will increasingly use AI tools, and we need to make sure that they are used for good and not for bad. And the big question is, what skills do schools need to give to students? And this is likely to change. In the past, schools focused on giving students information. Now, people don't need more information. They are flooded by enormous amounts of information. What they need is the ability to tell the difference between reliable information and unreliable information. They need the ability to take a lot of bits of information and connect them together to form a meaningful picture of the world. So I think that schools definitely need to shift their attention from, like in my field of history, you don't need to teach kids to memorize dates and names and kings and wars. They can easily find this information if they need it. What they really need is the ability to know the difference between a reliable historical source and fake news or conspiracy theories. And they need the ability to take all these little bits of historical information and connect them together to get the big picture of history. The other key skills that children need to learn is how to keep learning and keep changing throughout their lives. Because we don't know how the job market or society would look like in 20 years, except that we know it will be very different from right now, and it will keep changing again and again because of the rapid development of technology. So people will need to acquire new skills, new jobs, maybe new professions, again and again throughout their lives. People need to know how to change. And this is another thing that history can be very helpful with, because history is not the study of the past. History is the study of change, of how things change. That's at the focus of history. That's one of the things I try to do in Unstoppable Us in the book, is exactly that. The book doesn't have a lot of, lists of names and dates and all this dry information. Instead, it focuses on the process of change. It tries to explain to children how we changed from, again, animals in the savannah in Africa hundreds of thousands of years ago to the rulers of the world right now. And it tells this story to prepare children for the next changes that will come with ChatGPT and AI and other technological tools. To solve these problems, we need two things basically. First, we need to understand that we have the power to solve these problems, which is not obvious, but it is the case that even if you look at very big problems like climate change, we created this problem and we can solve it. It's not easy, but we have the economic resources, we have the scientific knowledge necessary to solve climate change. And then this is one of the main messages also of the book, of Unstoppable Us, that the world we know was created by human beings. Human beings decided the laws of the economy. Human beings decided the laws of politics. Human beings created the big religions and cultures of the world. So if we created them, we can also change them and solve the problems that they cause. If there is a problem in the economy, like we created an economy which destroys the ecological system, we can change it. So that's one key ingredient that to understand our power. And maybe I give an example. 65 million years ago, an asteroid from outer space hit planet Earth and destroyed the dinosaurs. Now, this is something that the dinosaurs didn't cause, and the dinosaurs couldn't stop it. It was an unstoppable force of nature. But the crisis we face today, the ecological crisis, is very different. We created it, and so also we can prevent it, we can stop it. But knowing that we can stop it is, of course, not enough. The other key ingredient that we need in order to solve these big problems is to unite on a global level, or to cooperate on a global level. Dinosaurs couldn't cooperate to deal with the disaster of the asteroid because they don't know how. They are incapable of doing it. Humans can cooperate in unlimited numbers. The 8 billion people on the planet, when we face a common problem, we have the ability to cooperate in order to deal with it. And this is essential because if you look at climate change, or also if you look at other problems like artificial intelligence, this is not something that individual nations can solve by their own. Even the most powerful countries in the world, like the United States or like China, they cannot stop climate change by themselves, and they cannot regulate artificial intelligence by themselves. How do you cause 8 billion people to cooperate? This is, of course, very difficult. So it's the same idea. You tell them a story that unites them. Every nation is united by its own story. So also humanity as a whole has a common story. We all came from the same place. We all originally came from sapiens who lived in Africa. We share the same basic biology. We share the same history. And, the nations that exist today in the world, they are very new. The oldest nations in the world are maybe 5,000 years old. And 5,000 years is a very short time in terms of human evolution. Humans have been on Earth for more than 2 million years. After 2 million years of human history, we are now facing an existential crisis. Our very survival is in question because of the ecological danger on one side and because of the rise of AI and the technological danger on the other side. Just as a nation comes together to protect itself against a dangerous threat, so I hope that also humanity can come together in this crisis in order to protect itself from these dangerous threats. And I hope that Unstoppable Us, and in general, studying history, will make a small contribution towards this goal by showing to kids, by teaching kids that yes, each of us belongs to a certain nation. I'm Israeli, you're Koreans, there are people who are Brazilians or people who are French. But beneath all that, we are first of all human beings. We are all human beings. We have a common history. We are facing common dangers, and we need to cooperate in order to protect humanity. Of course, the title can be translated into local languages. It has been translated in various ways into local languages. But it was important, the meaning of the title Unstoppable Us, at least in English, it has a double meaning which I wanted to convey. On the one hand, it talks about the immense power of humanity, that we are unstoppable, that there is no other animal on the planet that can stop us. Not the elephants, not the lions, not the whales. They are all much, much weaker than us. And even the forces of nature find it difficult to stop us. We now are able, to destroy forests, to cut through the deserts, to go through oceans, even to fly to outer space to the moon. So this is one meaning of unstoppable. But the word has another meaning, a darker meaning maybe. Also, we cannot stop ourselves. No matter what we achieve, no matter what we get, we always want more. It's true on the individual level. A person wants $1 million, they get $1 million, now they want 2. They get 2, they want 10. They always want more. And it's also true of humanity as a whole. No matter how much power we gain, we want more. We are now thousands of times more powerful than we were in the Stone Age, and yet we are not satisfied. And also, we don't know how to translate all this power into happiness, into satisfaction. In Buddhist mythology, there is this figure, this character of the hungry ghost, which eats and eats and eats and is never satisfied. And we are like this hungry ghost. We are eating the whole world, and still we can't stop. We are not satisfied. And this makes us very dangerous for everything around us and also for ourselves. So this is the double meaning of unstoppable. That nobody can stop us, but also we cannot stop ourselves. And therefore, we are putting the entire world in danger. And if you find a way to translate this word, conveying these two meanings into another language, then that's perfectly fine. But I know that some publishers just prefer to keep the original English title. Thank you so much.